In a village where whispers held more weight than truths, Amina's life was a tapestry of silent tears and unseen bruises. But when the river called her name, destiny wove a new pattern, one of love, liberation, and ethereal embrace of spirit. In the heart of the village, Amina's home was a place where laughter had long been silenced. Her husband, once a charming suitor, had become a tyrant behind closed doors. Neighbors turned a blind eye, their silence complicit. Each day, Amina bore the weight of invisible chains, her spirit dimming with every passing moment. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Amina wandered to the river's edge, seeking solace. The water's gentle murmur seemed to whisper her name, offering a serenity she hadn't felt in years. As she dipped her fingers into the cool stream, a sense of calm enveloped her, as if the river recognized her pain and beckoned her towards healing. That night, Amina dreamed a radiant figure emerging from the river, eyes filled with compassion. The spirit spoke without words, conveying understanding and an awe for refuge. Upon waking, the dream lingered, its warmth contrasting the cold reality of her life. Drawn by an unseen force, Amina returned to the river, where the boundary between dreams and reality blurred. That night, as the world slept, Amina sat in the darkness of her room, her hands trembling, her body bruised, but her spirit awakening. For the first time in years, she didn't cry from pain. She cried from clarity. The river had whispered truth. There was a world beyond this pain, and she could choose it. One final tear slid down her cheek, not of weakness, but farewell. She was done begging, done enduring. Tomorrow she would go. At dawn, Amina walked barefoot to the river, her feet silent on the dirt path. Every tree, every bird seemed to watch her, as if nature itself knew she was about to cross a threshold. The villagers watched from behind half-closed doors, whispering, but Amina didn't stop. She stepped into the river, and for the first time, the water didn't feel cold. It felt like home. With every step, her sorrow melted, replaced by something ancient, something free. The current stilled. From beneath the water, a glowing figure emerged, tall, cloaked in light, with eyes like liquid gold. He spoke in a voice that echoed in her bones. "I have waited for you." This was no demon, no nightmare. He was the spirit of the river, protector of the broken, husband of the forgotten. Amina felt no fear, only recognition. "Will you walk with me?" he asked, and she whispered, "I already have." He took her hand, and the river swallowed them whole. But instead of drowning, Amina found herself floating into a realm of beauty beyond imagination. The underwater kingdom shimmered with light, filled with singing currents, spirit maidens, and ancestral guardians. Here there was no pain, only music, memory, and power. The spirit whispered, "You were never meant to suffer. You were meant to awaken." Amina stood beneath a sacred tree in the heart of the river world. The spirit placed a veil of light upon her head. This was no marriage of body. It was a union of energy, of liberation. The waters hummed. Her bruises faded. Her spirit shimmered. As they joined hands, a crown of river lilies bloomed on her head. The old Amina had died. In her place stood a queen, bride of the spirit world, reborn. But peace does not go unnoticed. In the village, her husband searched, rage in his eyes. The villagers murmured, some feared, some prayed. By the river's edge, the wind carried her name. Even the elders felt it. Amina was not lost. She had ascended. Yet jealousy is a hungry spirit. and the man who had once hurt her now sought to drag her back. But the river does not forget, and spirits do not forgive. Amina, now Spirit Queen, was summoned before the Council of Waters. Peace has a price, they warned. Her past was trying to claw her back. She must decide, seal the river from the human world, or return above to confront the storm. Her voice, calm and powerful, replied, "I will not run from my shadows. I will face him, not as a woman in pain, but as a spirit in purpose." The spirit of fire, the guardian of courage, rose from beneath the boiling springs, summoned by Amina's oath to face her abuser. "You will need more than light to confront darkness," he warned, his voice blazing. Amina stepped forward, unshaken. "Then burn my fear away." Flames danced in her eyes as the spirit of fire passed through her, leaving behind strength forged in heat. Amina was no longer made of flesh alone. She carried elements within her now. The river opened like a curtain. Amina emerged clothed in white light, barefoot but regal, her feet barely touching the ground. The village fell silent. Children watched in awe. Elders knelt instinctively. Her husband, hidden in the crowd, felt something ancient stir, fear. But Amina said nothing. Her presence spoke louder than any word. The river had returned her not as a victim, but as a force. He waited at the door of their former home, defiant, holding a machete. "You think spirits make you brave?" he spat. But as she approached, the machete dropped. His arms shook. Her eyes held storms. "I do not come to fight," she said calmly. "I come to release what I once loved." She placed her hand on his chest, not in affection but closure. A wave of wind pushed him back. He wept, not for her loss, but for the power he would never touch again. Later, under the great baobab tree, women from across the village came to sit around her. They wept, not just for her story, but for their own. Amina listened. She did not preach. She held their hands, passed them river stones imbued with light. "You are not alone," she whispered. And for the first time, women who had endured in silence stood tall. One by one, they found their voice. The spirit bride had become a healer. Not all rejoiced. The elders argued in hushed voices. "She is no longer one of us," said the jealous. "She belongs to the spirits now." Some feared change. Others feared truth. Rumors spread of witchcraft, rebellion, curses. But the river remained calm. Amina did not respond. Power does not argue. It moves. Those ready to evolve gathered around her. Those clinging to the past sharpened their tongues. That night, a young girl in the village fell into a deep trance. In her sleep, she walked to the river, eyes closed but feet sure. Amina followed, sensing something sacred unfolding. At the riverbank, the girl spoke in tongues, ancient voices echoing through her tiny frame. "She is the first dream walker," the river spirit whispered, "a child chosen to carry messages between worlds." Amina held the girl and kissed her forehead. A new age had begun. As the girl dreamed, the ground cracked slightly beneath the village square. From the earth rose the spirit of soil, old, massive, silent. His message was clear. Balance had been disturbed. With the rise of spirit queens and dream walkers came responsibility. "Do not let power blind purpose," he rumbled. Amina bowed before him. "We will honor the soil." She vowed to build a sanctuary not of gold, but of healing. By the river's edge, Amina and her followers began to build. Not a temple, but a sanctuary. There were no walls, only flowing cloths, drums, herbs, and sacred water bowls. Women came to give birth here. Orphans found song here. The abused found sleep. No one left without healing. And at the center, always, was Amina, once a prisoner, now a pillar. Her voice, like water, never shouted, but it healed all it touched. Far away, deep in the western hills, a shadow stirred. A forgotten spirit, banished long ago for feeding on fear, had felt the shift. A woman is waking the dead, it hissed, fueled by bitterness. It slithered toward the village cloaked in silence. The spirit of the river trembled slightly. The darkness you left behind has found its path back, he warned Amina. She nodded. Let it come. I no longer run. Clouds thickened. Winds howled. Dreams were disturbed. Children cried in their sleep. The villagers gathered by the sanctuary. The spirit river glowed in eerie blue. Amina stood at its center, cloaked in flowing water light. The darkness comes, she whispered, but we will not bow. Her husband, now humbled and repentant, knelt beside her. Let me stand with you. She placed a glowing stone in his hand. Then stand in truth. The winds carried voices that hadn't spoken in centuries. Bones buried beneath the village began to whisper secrets. Amina walked barefoot to the old graveyard, guided by the spirit of silence. There, the bones of women-long silence began to rise, not in flesh but in memory. They surrounded her, singing a song only spirits knew. We never had the chance to speak, they sang, but now we march with you. The sky blackened unnaturally. Even the birds stopped mid-flight. Time slowed. The spirit of the Dark One slithered across the clouds like an oil spill, searching for Amina's light. Villagers hid. Trees bowed. But Amina stood alone in the sanctuary, arms open. Let darkness see what it fears most, those who no longer serve it. She walked into the storm, her shadow walking behind her, no longer ahead of her. In the heart of the storm, the dark spirit conjured a giant mirror shadow. Look, it hissed. The mirror showed Amina every moment of her suffering, her beatings, her shame, her helplessness. You are broken, the spirit sneered. But Amina stepped closer and whispered, I am not broken, I am rebuilt. The mirror cracked, and from its shattering, light poured forth. Her pain was her weapon. Suddenly, the wind stilled. The spirit husband descended, made of mist and stars. He stood beside Amina, not to fight, but to witness. This is your war, he whispered, but you never fight alone. He raised his arm, and spirits of women from other worlds appeared, from deserts, mountains, and oceans. Amina was no longer one woman. She was thousands. The dark spirit lunged, a tidal wave of fear and shame aimed at the sanctuary. Amina raised her arms, and the spirits behind her formed a shield, not a medal, but a memory, courage, and healing. The fear bounced back, hitting the dark spirit. It howled. You remember too much, it screamed. But that was her power. She remembered and survived. Amina walked through the storm, holding a bowl of river fire, the gift from the spirit of fire. She poured it into the earth, and the land lit up in golden veins. The truth spread underground like wildfire. Every hidden abuse, every buried cry, began to rise to the surface. The village could no longer look away. Truth burned, but it also freed. He watched from afar, broken by guilt. Her former husband knelt at the old shrine and cried, not for forgiveness, but for understanding. A spirit of judgment appeared, neither cruel nor kind, and placed a stone in his hand. Carry this until you understand its weight. He wept for the first time for her, not as a possession, but as a soul he had once damaged. Redemption had a long road. The Dreamwalker girl began to glow during the storm. She opened her eyes and spoke in two voices, hers and another ancient one. The gates are opening, she whispered. Amina nodded. Let them open. The sanctuary doors flung wide, and spirits began to pour through, not to haunt, but to heal. The spirit world had bridged itself with the mortal. Amina was the living link. The river overflowed, but instead of flooding, it climbed into the sky like a serpent of water. It circled above the village, forming a glowing ring. Inside that ring, no light could survive, no wound could hide. The villagers felt their souls stripped bare. Some wept, others screamed. But Amina said, "Let it wash us clean." And it did. With its lies exposed and its power broken, the dark spirit began to shrink, screaming as it dissolved into mist. "I will return when they forget," it hissed. But Amina spoke a final word in an ancient tongue, and a seal formed in the sky, not to destroy the spirit, but to remind it could never grow where truth lived. Silence fell. The war was over, for now. The village changed. Not suddenly, not perfectly, but deeply. Men met in circles to unlearn violence. Women shared stories openly. Children played by the river without fear. And at the sanctuary, Amina sat quiet, peaceful, powerful. She was no longer feared or worshipped. She was trusted. One evening, a child asked her, "Are you still Amina?" She smiled. "That name carried my pain. I am still her, but now I am more." The spirits whispered a new name into the wind, Elohina, meaning she who carries both worlds. The villagers began to call her by it, and each time they did, the wind carried it further across the land. Word spread beyond the village. From faraway lands came women, men, and even spirits who had lost their way. They came not for miracles, but for memory. They wanted to remember what power looked like in love's form. Amina never turned anyone away. Her sanctuary grew not in size, but in spirit. A sacred tree grew at the center of the sanctuary. It whispered names to those who sat beneath it. The tree had once been dead, but revived by the river's tears. Amina sat beneath it, listening to names of spirits who were yet to arrive. "They are coming," the tree whispered, "even the forgotten." A messenger came with a letter sealed in blood-red wax. It bore the symbol of a spirit cult far to the north, one that believed only pain could awaken truth. Amina's face darkened. "They still believe in chains," she said. The next chapter of her journey would not be spiritual healing, but confrontation. The cult was rising again, and they had their eyes on the river. That night, the spirit husband returned, his light dimmed. The cult seeks to bind the river spirit and turn its healing into control. Amina looked out at the water. "Then I will go to the hills." But not alone. Behind her, the dream walker girl, the former husband, and others gathered. She had become more than a spirit's bride. She was now a general of broken healers. As dawn broke, Amina stepped away from the sanctuary. She left behind no guards, no locks. "The spirit will protect itself," she whispered. With a bag of sacred stones, a bowl of river fire, and dreams woven into cloth, she began her journey to the hills, where another forgotten darkness was waiting. Halfway through the journey, Amina stopped at the base of the great mountains. The spirit of the peaks emerged, tall, cold, wise. "The path is steep. Only those who have carried others may rise." Amina smiled. "Then I shall carry all their names with me." She ascended, each step weighed down by memory, but lifted by purpose. Drums echoed from the cult's temple. They were calling something, not from heaven or hell, but from between. Amina stood at the edge of their valley. Her spirit army gathered behind her. She looked over her shoulder. "This is not the end," she whispered. "This is the beginning of what must never be forgotten." As lightning forked through the sky and ancient drums beat louder, Amina stepped forward. The spirit husband whispered, "Are you ready?" She did not answer. She simply walked forward, barefoot, toward the firelight. Her scars no longer hid her. They led her, and in her silence, the heavens listened. Some stories are not just meant to be heard. They are meant to be remembered, shared, and carried into the future like sacred fire. If this story moves something deep inside you, then there are many more waiting in the winds of time. Subscribe to At Echoes Africa Stories. Turn on the notification bell and share this with someone who needs to believe again in healing, in strength, and in the spirits that still walk with us.